Previously, Brendan goes through his training regimen and tests his equipment. He readies himself for his trip to Tibet. Welcome back to Everest for Mountaineers.
From my home in Qingdao, China, I flew to Lhasa, Tibet. Entering the city, I was immediately overwhelmed with nostalgia, as I had been here before with Dave in 2007. We rode mountain bikes from Lhasa to Mount Everest Base Camp and down into Kathmandu, Nepal. With the rest of my climbing team driving up from Nepal, I needed to continue west across the Tibetan Plateau to meet them. On the way, I spent a day in Shigatse, the second largest city in Tibet. Thinking back to the bike trip a decade earlier, I didn't have favorable memories of this city. However, spending a gorgeous afternoon exploring the Tashi Lumpo Monastery and the surrounding hills helped me realize what a gem this city really is. The next day, I reached a small village called Tingri. There, I met up with the summit climb team, including Patrick. We took a hike up to the Gelung Monastery to catch up.
Everest is to the right, Choyu is to the left.
This quickly turned into a disagreement of which mountains we could see. That was Everest on the left, and Cho Oyu was on the right. Sorry, Patrick, you were wrong.
All right, we'll see. We have it on video.
The next day, we did an acclimatization hike up a local peak with the team. It was hard to take it slow, but doing so made the climb easy.
All right, so you see these pickup trucks here? They carry all of our gear to base camp. It's kind of stupid.
The drive from Tingri heads back towards Shigatse, but then takes a turn south at the entrance to the Mount Everest National Park. It continues through the town of Chietsun before heading up the nauseating switchbacks of the Golula Pass. The top of the pass, at 5,198 meters, offers one of the best views of the Himalayas. Coming down from Golula Pass, you reach Jiaxi Zongcun, where we picked up last-minute Oreos. Another couple of hours, and we pulled up to the new Rongbuk Monastery. And permit check. You'll likely have to do a handful of these as you travel through Tibet.
All right, we're here. What do you think?
Made it.
We made it?
Almost made it. We have to get past this final check.
Yeah, we got some shipping container people who are going to come out and give us some grief, I'm sure.
After a relatively minimal amount of grief, we were let through. Finally, we arrived at Chinese base camp.
Gelje.
Yes,
I'm Brendan. Nice to meet you.
Patrick.
We just got to.
I know. Yeah, you remember me.
Just got to base camp, setting up, picking our tents, bringing all our gear, sorting it out. Beautiful day. Everest looking fantastic.
Gelje Sherpa was one of the Sherpas that was with Patrick during his 2014 and 2015 Everest summit attempts. All of us took our time putting our camp together, except for this man, Jangbu, our head Sherpa. He has summited Everest 17 times and was always hustling and smiling. The sun dipped behind the mountains and I headed to my tent. I felt a little bit of comfort knowing that Jangbu was going to the summit with us. I had wanted to wait for the sunbeams to get up, but the whipping of the prayer flags against my tent that fellow climber Martin had put up the night before urged me out. We all started rustling and got to the first order of business, emptying our pee bottles. Patrick and I both had the 96-ounce Nalgene canteen, a must for any expedition. Too many climbers have used the regular Nalgene bottles as pee bottles and mixed them up in the middle of the night when reaching for a drink. After taking care of the morning business, we headed into our black Tibetan tea house-themed tent and warmed up with tea while the kitchen boys, as they're called, Nobu and Tashi, brought in breakfast. This was the first and last time I had eggs for breakfast. The rest of my days on the mountain, I would stick to porridge.
4K breakfast.
Our expedition leader, David, from the UK, gave us our morning briefing.
It's a take it easy day really today. If you're feeling good, there is a walk up this hill behind us there that you can gain some altitude and you can look over the camp. But that's, really it's preferable to take it easy or get your gear ready. So the yaks are coming on the 19th. And there'll be a whole load of bells clanking all night long, and what with that and Martin's prayer flags, you might not have the best nights.
Okay, I got it. So this is our mess tent down here at base camp. Patrick's going to give us the tour.
This is where we eat, relax, lounge, socialize. And so most of the team members are around here. Everyone seems to have found their own spot. We have an unusual tent because we have a Tibetan tea house motif. And most of the other ones are these big dome tents that are sterile and hard to warm up. And it gets very warm during the daytime. At night and early in the morning, it is not.
This is our first morning at base camp. It's pretty cold this morning, -12. Just had breakfast, and we're told our jobs for the day are to sort our gear that's going to go up to interim camp and then advanced base camp. The Sherpas sorted gear. We sorted gear. The goal was to get everything ready for moving up the mountain. While the yaks would be constantly traveling between the camps, this first big movement of equipment is when you want to organize everything you will need for higher up. The better you can plan for what you need at successive camps, the less shuffling of gear and carrying you will have to do later on. Patrick and I took things slow. We drank as much water as possible. It was hard to stay focused on a task as Everest and all the possibilities stood in front of us. Staring at the peak, you squint your eyes to find Camp 3, the exit cracks, and the 3 steps. Large cliffs that are known as the crux of the North Ridge route. To calm my nerves, I wandered around for a peaceful spot to do some deep breathing. I would do 3 rounds of 30 breaths. On the 30th breath, I would exhale completely and envision myself moving up the mountain framed in prayer flags. The scripts on the flags are blessings, and the constant Tibetan winds disperse them. Looking out over base camp, it was clear to see who the big players were, and hard to not be intimidated. I went to bed that night thinking that the last thing I wanted was to be put in a position where I was slowing others down on the climb. Or worse. We've been at base camp for 3 days now, at Chinese base camp. We each have our own individual tents. Mine is right here. And the view of Everest from here is ridiculous. It's so hard to stop taking pictures of this mountain. Awesome. Right now the Sherpas are weighing all the different bags for the yaks. Hey Jangbu, this is all for the yaks, right?
Yeah.
This is for the yaks? All the way to advanced base camp?
Yeah, ABC.
ABC. Looks like the boys are coming to pick up our gear. The next morning, Team Yak and its herdsmen had arrived. Each yak costs $350 to carry gear to advanced base camp. This was the time to earn their keep. Yaks weigh the same amount as 2 grand pianos. They can survive winters at high altitudes where the temperatures can get down to -40 degrees. And lucky for us, they can carry heavy loads at high altitudes. Hey, that's my bag. It's cool getting to know the people on our team, joking around with them, playing cards. Definitely a lot of downtime, getting some reading done, which is really nice. Definitely a little nervous about every step after this. So like tomorrow is our hike up to interim camp, then we're there for 2 days, and you're always just thinking, is it gonna be cold? Do I have enough stuff? Am I gonna sleep? Am I gonna get a headache? I seem to be worried a lot more than I should. I'm like super positive about being able to do this. Still the unknowns of what's to come are daunting, I guess. To make use of the time, I admired the view, washed clothes, and practiced my Wim Hof breathing. One of the afflictions that Everest climbers face is called the Khumbu cough, a result of inhaling extremely cold and extremely dry air. In order to reduce my chances of getting the Khumbu cough, I always did my breathing with my air pollution mask on. This kept the air I was inhaling relatively moist and warm. At 5,364 meters, having an SpO2 of 95 is very high. However, what I find most interesting about the breathing is the breath hold at the end. My SpO2 and heart rate both decrease. However, my heart rate keeps dropping and dropping and dropping. Just then, it had gone from 110 beats per minute to 50 beats per minute. That is something I wasn't expecting. I can only think that my body is learning to relax and use as little oxygen as possible during the breath hold.
Today is day 4 at Chinese base camp. We're supposed to head up to interim camp today, but because the ropes haven't been fixed on the North Col, we're gonna just do an acclimatization hike up this guy right over here. You can see some people up there. They're super, super tiny. So it's way bigger than it looks. Patrick and I are both gonna go with pretty heavy packs just so we can get used to traveling with a heavy pack. Because I haven't done that since I put a giant bottle of water in my backpack and climbed Fushan. A little bit different.
The whole summit climb team decided to make it a group effort, and we all left camp together. The trail was steep out of the gate, passed by a valley of prayer flags, and came to a cliff band where other teams were practicing their technical skills. We decided to take a quick break to allow our expedition leader David tell us why the yak negotiations had taken so long that morning.
Basically, additional yaks here cost $350, which is quite a lot because to buy a yak would cost about $1,000.
Yeah.
And yak waiting fee, which basically includes a bag of straw, is $100. And
1/10 the cost of a yak.
Indeed. So as much as I try to negotiate, clearly these fellas know there is nowhere else to go.
As we got higher up, the rocks became less and less stable.
We're on some unnamed peak. We're having flashbacks of Aconcagua. It's a giant rock field where pretty much every rock moves. We're in the same approach shoes that we did Aconcagua in, so we feel comfortable, but yet stupid, because we're doing the same stupid thing we did before. But it's all good. Only a little bit to descend.
This hill and practice climb was not worth risking a rolled ankle, so we took in the view of the camp and descended. On the way down, we stopped by some other teams' tents, including the Chinese, the Russians,
The Seven Summits group, the Russian group. Whoa! Hopefully they don't have Tibet wine.
Impressive, and a global team that was preparing to break a world record of highest formal dinner. We got back to our tent just in time for our own dinner. Zhangbu lit the heater.
The chicken noodle soup without the chicken and without the noodles, that was really good. It is. A spoonful of popcorn makes the medicine go down.
Then Zhangbu, in full smile, surprised us with maybe the highest apple pie in the world. While we were all enjoying the comforts of base camp, we knew they wouldn't last. Tomorrow, we would move up the mountain.